join us too. So,
Recording started.
hi Bob, thanks for coming. Okay, so the record, just so you know, this is being recorded. And uh, JP, would you like to go ahead and take it away?
Okay. Uh, okay. I'm JP Johnson. I work in the Kentucky room at the Lexington Public Library. Before we get started with newspapers, I want to direct everybody's attention to the library website. Get that up for you.
JP,
Uh-huh.
Jonna, I think you'll have to mute everyone. I don't have that option anymore, so it's made you the host. But so she's going to mute everyone, but feel free to you.
Up.
Okay. Can everybody hear me?
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
So while the physical libraries are closed, I want to direct everybody to the library website, where you can still access the different virtual events that we are doing. There are also digital services for adults, digital services for kids. You have access to our databases. Jonna, how much longer do we have free access to Ancestry.com?
Until the end of May.
Until the end of May. So definitely take advantage of that. We also have, of course, the local history index, newsbank.com, the Lexington Herald Leader. So those are all really good resources. Even if you're just looking for a good book to read, that's a really good resource. And of course, there's all the story times, the cookbook club. So take advantage of that. So with that, I'll get started on the newspapers. First, I want to draw your attention. If you have Microsoft Windows, you have access to this thing called a snipping tool, and it will benefit you greatly using these websites to have that, because the different ways that the websites have to download and save newspaper articles is a bit wonky, and the snipping tool allows you to create screen captures of the different articles that you may want to save. And I'll go over that. I'll show you how I do that a little bit later. So first, we're going to start with Chronicling America, which is a website from the Library of Congress. So here's the main page. You have a simple search. And before I go any further, just so you know, this is free. This is our tax dollars paying for digitized newspapers. And as you can see, this database covers from 1690 to the present. So the way I use this is I typically will go to all digitized newspapers. And since I focus mainly on Kentucky, I find Kentucky in here. You can select all ethnicities. You can select language, but you can select Kentucky. Go. And here is a list of all Kentucky newspapers that Chronicling America has access to. And they're in order by the title of the newspaper. Scroll down to the Lexington papers. So the only Lexington papers that Chronicling has is the Lexington Record, the Lexington Standard, and the Lexington Weekly News. So one of probably the best thing that I do is that if you click on the title, it'll take you to a page that describes what the newspaper covers, what subjects, and dates of publication. But the really cool thing is this calendar view over here. You click on that, it allows you to select a year, and then the existing newspapers are highlighted. So you can go to that specific newspaper, and here you have the digitized newspaper, and you can zoom in and read the different articles. And then if you want, you can save the image as either a text, a TXT file, or a PDF, or a JPEG. You can also snip the article. This is where it gets wonky because it just saves, it gives you an image of what was on your screen, and it may cut the article in half. So it then becomes really neat to have that snipping tool, because depending on the size of your computer screen, you should be able to get the whole article. Like I said, Chronicling America, the way they have you save it is really wonky, and it can be kind of difficult to get the full image that you want. So let me get one of these smaller images. So say you wanted this: the various ministers of the gospel in the city have expressed their full endorsement of our paper and its object. If you wanted that article, you could then click on Snipping Tool. Once you have it open, click on New. You can then highlight that article. It opens in a screen, and then you can save it to your desktop. So that's Chronicling America. Like I said, there's a simple search, there's an advanced search. The advanced search allows you to select state, the name of the newspaper. You can select particular years. You can select a language. And then here you're able to do basically sort of a Boolean search. You can search for any of the words, all the words, a particular phrase, and then other words that should also appear in the news in the same article. Any questions? Okay. That's Chronicling America.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I assume that's like there's many thousands of newspapers.
Yes.
Does it just kind of vary from state to state, like how many choices you'll have?
It does. Because it just depends on what newspapers the Library of Congress have digitized.
Okay.
And it also depends on, like you'll see with Genealogy Bank and newspapers.com, different websites sign different contracts with the owners of the newspapers.
Mhm.
So, like, there's only a couple of Lexington papers on here because they either don't have access to those newspapers, or uh, the owners of the newspapers haven't allowed them access to it. Okay. So next is Genealogy Bank, which is part of Newsbank. You do have access through the library website to newsbank.com, which also allows gives you transcriptions of newspapers from all over the country. Once again, you have a simple search and you have an advanced search. The advanced search allows you to put in a date range, keywords. You can select state, city, even down to the name of the newspaper. This website, of course, you have to pay for. Genealogy Bank is about $50 for a year subscription, but you do have a lot of access to different things. Let me go ahead and bring up the Kentucky newspapers. Here are a list of newspapers by state. Of course, if you go to Kentucky, here you have all the different newspapers that are available for Kentucky. Over here where it says collection, newspaper archives means that you have actual digitized copies of the newspaper. Obituaries just mean you have the obituaries, which I haven't used very much, but I assume they're probably transcribed, and it's probably the same information that you would get through using the library's news bank obituaries collection. So let me scroll down to Lexington. So here you see that there are many more Lexington newspapers than they have at Chronicling America. And they even have, here we have, like I said, the obituaries collection. We have new newspapers like Chevy Chaser and Business Lexington.
We've got the reporter there. Is that our Kentucky reporter? It says 1808.
Yeah, let's see. Let's look at that one. Let's look up Henry Clay. So this is just going to search in the reporter from 1808 to 1831. So here is an article from 1827. And because I didn't put anything in quotation marks, it found everywhere where Henry and Clay appear. So you have, you have this article from the New York American, Henry Clay. Apparently he was accused of some sort of corruption. Over here you have Henry Baldwin. So this is real, this is a newspaper article from 1827, which is really, really, really cool. Let me see if I can get. So the ability to save a snippet of an article in this paper, in Genealogy Bank, is a little bit easier. It does provide a clipping tool. And then once again, you would highlight what article or part of an article you want. And then this little box opens and you're able to download to your computer, to print, or save to a folder. If you have a Genealogy Bank account, it gives you a folder where you can save articles to it. I usually just download to my computer because I'm typically going to use it for something else. So if I click on download to your computer, click on next, you can then select PDF or image file. Let's do an image file. And it saves. And it's the article that you just saved, and it gives you the includes the name of the paper, the date, and the page that it appears on. That's much better than Chronicling America's way of saving things. It also allows you up here these little icons at your folder. There's the clipping tool, to print it, to download it, to share it, or to save it to your family search account. Any questions?
JP, did you say, you may have already said this, but is the content on Genealogy Bank different than what you can get on Newsbank?
Those obituaries collections, I think they're probably the same,
Uh-huh.
but Newsbank doesn't give you these digitized articles, digitized papers.
Okay.
Yeah,
And Newsbank you can get to with your library card through our website.
right.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. So then, this is newspapers.com. It's part of ancestry.com. It is also a pay site. I pay for the Publisher Extra, which is about $75 every 6 months. They do have different pay points for depending on what you want to do. It's just that the newspaper articles I want you have to have the Publisher Extra to do that. As with the other sites, you have a simple search. The advanced search allows you to put in the paper location. This is a little confusing. It's not, you could do a keyword search for a particular place, but paper location is specifically where the paper was published. So you can put in a keyword, you can put in the name of the paper or the place the paper was published and the date. You can browse the papers. Once again, have it broken up by state, but you also have access to different countries. I'm going to go to Kentucky. And then they have under Kentucky every paper by place. There's Lexington. And here, once again, is a list of the papers that are available. There is some overlap with Genealogy Bank and Chronicling America. This is interesting. This is the Morning Herald, which would eventually become the Lexington Herald, but these are just the first 4 years that it was published. I know Denise earlier was talking about Texas. Let's see what Texas has. So here's Greenville, Texas. We have the Greenville Morning Herald and the Herald Banner. Let me show you what I typically am working with. So I'm from Western Kentucky, and one of the main papers there is the Owensboro Messenger Inquirer. So any place that has this, any title that has this little plus symbol by it, you have to have the Publisher Extra account. And any dates that are in this pink color, those you also have to have the Publisher Extra. And as you can see, this newspaper, Messenger Inquirer, goes all the way up to 2019. So that's something else that you get with Publisher Extra, is that you get really recent archives. and in color. And as you can see, it goes back pretty far as well. So let me show you real quick how you'll benefit from using the snipping tool here. I will just select a particular any newspaper. So say you wanted this millinery ad. The newspapers.com allows for a clipping tool. You can then highlight the article that you want, clip, save, and it gives you the article as a PDF. Now this one actually turns out pretty okay because it's such a small article, but the problem is that it tries to fit every article on an 8.5 by 11 PDF page, so it's easier to print out. So if the article is really long or in different columns, it becomes really, really difficult to read. So it actually benefits you to use the snipping tool because you have more control over the size. Let me do this again. See if I can get something pretty big so you can see how it looks on the page. See, that can get pretty difficult to read as the article gets bigger. It's just, yeah. I have someone who's been sending me articles from newspapers.com, and the reason why I got a subscription to it was so I could go and find the article and like make it big enough where it could be read. And one of the things that, like I said, there's a little bit of overlap in all three websites. And then once you add in our Kentucky Room digital archive, like newspapers.com had access to the Kentucky Gazette, but you also have access to that through the library's digital archive. So that's something else to take. You know, we have a lot of good stuff in our database collection, and I highly recommend using it because it's also searchable. Any questions?
When you subscribe to Ancestry.com, does that include access to newspapers.com since they own them?
No,
No.
it's an extra fee. Sorry.
How much is that, Jonna?
Let me double check. JP, I don't know if you're going to talk about this, but I'll shop around at your Lexington Public Library will get you a library card at the 17 surrounding counties. Shop around because some of the libraries have different databases. Scott County has Genealogy Bank. Okay.
Jonna, how do you get those library cards? Do you have to go in person?
You do have to go in person, so the library will have to be open, and just take your Lexington Public Library card and your driver's license.
also check with Kenton County. They're not an adjacent county, but they will give the card to anyone in the state. And they have a number of resources as well. I think they have Fold 3 military records.
So are these databases, do we have to come into the library to use them, or can we use them from home? The ones you're talking about?
I think JP stepped away for a second, so I'll answer
Yeah.
so the Chronicling America, that is a free Library of Congress website. So, you can just use that at home. The Genealogy Bank and newspapers.com, those are subscription services. So we don't offer them through the library, but a lot of the content that's on Genealogy Bank is available on a website we have called Newsbank.
And we can just access that from home.
Yes, Newsbank, you'll need your card number and your PIN.
Okay, thanks.
Newspapers, the basic subscription is $44.95 for 6 months. But if you get the extra, it's $75 for every 6 months. And I justify that as that's not even a weekend road trip for me. So, and I'm on it all the time.
Yeah, that's been the best thing. Sorry, I had someone at the door. That's really awesome because I'll have all 3 websites open, and then I can just spend the day just looking at newspaper articles and finding different things that I've been looking for. So it's really, if genealogy is something that you're really into, you're not going to lose money on it. It's going to be something that you're going to enjoy looking at over and over again. And there's so much to explore. I know I focused more on sort of the Kentucky aspect, but there are so many newspapers and so much to look at. So,
So, JP, and you use newspapers a lot. So, in addition to like obituaries, what other kinds of information do you find in newspapers?
well, you have marriages, you'll have announcements for birthdays, you'll have basically evidence of your ancestors behaving badly or like committing crimes. You also, I've found a lot of, if you're interested in sports, there's a lot of sports history. There tends to be a lot more pictures of sport activities than there are of other things. You never know when you might find a picture of your ancestor playing a basketball game, or you might have an ancestor who, like I've found a lot of boxing matches.
Okay.
But yeah, you'll find out other things too. You'll see where, like, if you do a lot of cemetery research, you'll find instances of where the cemetery that you're looking at used to be called something else and now has a new name. But yeah,
And
those are all really interesting. Like, there's a lot of things like spelling bees and uh, fiddle contests and just a lot of really good color um, that if you're just looking at obituaries, you'll kind of miss.
Okay. Someone just joined and asked what we're talking about. So we were going over 3 websites for researching newspaper articles: Chronicling America, Newsbank, and Genealogy. No, I'm sorry, newspapers.com and Genealogy Bank. And then we had another question. Would any of these be available through the Kentucky State Library? I know South Carolina and Virginia State Library cardholders can get to some newspaper databases. I don't think so.
That I don't think so.
I don't.
We would have to ask Walter.
I do know that there are a number of smaller county newspapers in Kentucky that may not be covered in Newsbank, for example, but you can contact University of Kentucky and possibly get them through microfilm.
Yeah, like Sarah just chatted, that there's a lot of things that KDLA has, but you have to be in the building to access them. One of the things that I want to mention is that originally I got Genealogy Bank because it had the Lexington Herald Leader digitized up until like maybe 1983 when Newsbank took over transcribing it. They lost that contract, so those newspapers were removed from Genealogy Bank, and supposedly newspaper.com has that contract now, but they still haven't added the newspapers to their website. So who knows when that will happen. But that's a really, really good resource. Like coming to the Kentucky Room and looking through the microfilm is really neat because you never know what you might find. But sometimes it's really nice just to be able to search for the thing that you're looking for and find it.
And Sue just chatted. She said she found a couple of patents that her ancestors had for newspapers. So, yeah, there's lots of really unexpected finds you can come across. Okay. And I think Jonna shared this website, ancestorhunt.com. Looks like that's a sort for classes and papers. Well, are there any other questions? That was a good overview. Okay, there won't be a transcript, but the video of the presentation, we will share a link to it on our website, so you'll be able to watch it again. And all the websites that we talked about, they'll be shared on the Kentucky Room Genealogy Club page. We post all the websites. Jackie, do you want to show them that website?
What?
The Genealogy Club page.
Okay, I'll just take it.
Yeah, definitely. Feel free to ask questions.
Okay, I'm not sure. Can you hear me?
Yes. Yes.
Oh, great. I have a real brick wall, and luckily I stopped in downtown, just down from you, and looked at. I think it's called the deed room there, the courthouse. I'm not sure what all the books are, but I was looking for orphanages due to cholera for children, and I had real difficulty finding a great-great-grandmother after the cholera, but she turns up 20 years later in Jessamine County. But I did find a great-great-grandfather there that was orphaned at 2, and he had a 4-year-old brother. Now, my question to you is, his mother was the second wife, and the first wife had 6 kids, and one of those children was a guardian to him and his brother. So I found a guardianship paper where he had asked for funds out of the estate. They had sold some slaves. Now, I cannot find him in any census with any of the relatives. He's not with that relative. Where would you all look to find him or would they just not put him in the census? And it's 1860. He would be 2 years old. Well, he would actually 60. He would be 6 years old. Where would he be? Or would he be? He had a brother, and the brothers dropped off the face of the earth. The brother would have been 8. He was 6 and 8 in 1860.
It could be that you might want to look for an apprenticeship. Because even though 6 sounds really young, he still could have been apprenticed out to somebody else who was not necessarily a family member, and just that the the person who was his guardian had responsibility for him, but doesn't necessarily mean that he was living with him.
Okay. Now, would they use his name and have to claim him on the census as an apprentice?
If he was living in that household, yes.
So would the, I mean, I cannot find him. All his relatives went to Transylvania. There's living documents. All those older relatives were sent to Transylvania, and an older relative said this Johnson also went and dropped out. And I contacted Transylvania, and they had all the relatives, including the grocer that had, I found last night going through a lot of documents, a shop right on Mill. And he went and graduated from Transylvania, but Johnson, there was no documentation at Transylvania about him going to Transylvania. Even the girls, the older sisters went to Transylvania.
Is Johnson his first name or his last name?
First name, Johnson Van Pelt. Last name is Van Pelt.
Do a census search just on his first name and leave the last name blank with an unusual first name like that.
Okay.
You might have some luck.
I did find, and my next question is, I found a book in online, the Kentucky site, that has all of the, and I can't remember what it was called, all the businesses in Lexington, and all the names, and it also had their address.
I think you're talking about the directories. That's the Lexington directories go from 1808 to 1920 on UK's Digital Archive. I'm putting a link into the chat right now.
Thank you. I found the 1880, and that's what made me find out where the business was. But you say they started in 1808.
Yes. Now, of course, the earliest directories are much simpler. Now, Mike, you may not know this, but the directories will only be useful for people who are living within the city limits. This is not Fayette County. This is the city of Lexington.
Okay.
We have two of the rural directories on the Lexington Library's website in our digital archive, but the first one's not till 1912.
Okay, 1920.
Depends on where they were living, but if they were living within city limits, then they are arranged by name and by street.
Okay, great. Well, that will help. Several of his relatives had businesses downtown, but he literally is in no. I've looked at 30 relatives, Van Pelts. None of them have him. And there's one in New York, but now the interesting thing was a relative that called to tell me that Johnson used to sit the children down, all the children, when he was like 12, and read Shakespeare, or 16, and read Shakespeare to them. And then they said that he ran off to join the circus. Very interesting, colorful grandfather. Do you have any other suggestions how to find him from age 2 to 20? He married at 20, and I have him. He married my grandmother.
I would say it depends on the that he had as to where I would look.
The what?
The profession. Do you know what profession he was?
Well, he ended up being a farmer, but the relatives own businesses, all politically inclined in Lexington, and owned businesses. One was a sheriff, a constable.
Like, what was he doing at age 20?
Farming.
Okay. I would probably look. That sounds like it would probably be rural. Fayette County. What decade would that have been?
That was, well, it was 18, maybe 70 to 80, around in there.
Chances are good he may have been working in other people's farms, so he would probably be listed as a boarder or a worker on farms if he did not already have his own land. I would try locating other family groups in the area probably first. That would probably be my first step.
Other family groups, just, you mean, just extenuating family from the,
A lot of times they may be with aunts or uncles, or if you can find where his siblings ended up, you might try checking those households as well.
okay. Well, thank you. This has given me a lot of other, I've just recently been able to find, I did go to the University of Kentucky special document section, I think is what it's called, and found the orphanage. And they had 6 boxes for the cholera orphanage. And I got through the first one, and then we had to shut down. So, I mean, I don't know if he's in there or not. And it's very, I mean, it's very interesting. If anybody's looking for orphanage, that orphanage, they have lots and lots and lots, but it's mostly the benefactors that started it and the older from 19 on children. So anybody else have a suggestion of where I could look for orphanages or where he went? Who took care of him at age 2, 3, 4 up to 10?
Do you have his obituary?
Yes, but I don't, let me see.
I found an obituary for Johnson Van Pelt, died in Winchester in 1932.
Yes, sir, that's him.
Okay.
Let me double check because I was looking at his, I've been dealing with William. William was the guardian. And I've been dealing with the younger William Jr. But he was his actual cousin. Let me make sure I'm telling you right. You found his obituary?
It's in the Covington paper. I found it on Genealogy Bank.
And that's what you all were talking about. Let me make sure I have that. I have a lot on him. Oh, I do not have his obituary. So what? Can you email that to me by chance?
Yeah.
I don't know why I don't have that. I have a number of things for him. I have his death record and things, but I do not see his obituary, his marriage certificate. Pictures, I have lots of pictures grandmother had. But, okay. Well, thank you. And my email is.
If you'll send me your email address in the chat.
I'll put.
You want me to email it to you?
I'll put JP's email in the chat.
Yeah.
No, you can.
Okay, thank you.
That way you don't have to put yours.
Okay.
Screen.
Okay, so let me share the Genealogy Club page real quick.
Thank you. That was a great question. Thank you.
Well, thank you. You all helped a lot.
Okay, so here is the Genealogy Club page on the library website.
Okay, thank you.
Let me go to the home and show you how I got there.
Okay.
So under collections, genealogy and local history. And if you scroll all the way to the bottom, genealogy
I was looking at that last night, but I did not see that.
And here you'll find just different recommended resources that have been shared during our different genealogy club meetings. A lot of good places to go to if you're having difficulty or need just like some breadcrumbs. And stuff is always being added to it as well.
Great, great. I'll check all this out. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions?
I have a question. The 17 libraries that can be accessed with the Lexington Public Library card, is there a listing of those libraries? I know Scott County was mentioned.
The reciprocal counties are on our website.
Okay. That would be under the genealogy club
think
website.
I think it's under the frequently asked questions, like how to get a card. I think it looks like Jonna might be looking for it right now.
Okay. And what is that listing called?
I'm not sure which one is yours and which one's mine.
Reciprocal.
Reciprocal borrowing.
Okay.
Looks like Jonna found it.
I was looking and trying to
It
talk.
should be under our how to get a library card page.
Yeah.
Okay. Under how to get a library. Okay.
And that will access genealogy at their sites as well?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
A lot of the libraries will have similar resources, but they, like, one place might have a subscription to newspapers.com, for example, and you could, like, I think Danville has that. So you could get it through the Danville library.
Paul Sawyer has MyHeritage, like Ancestry, and so if you take your library card to Anderson, Clark, Estelle, Garrett, Jessman, Lincoln, Madison, Mercer, Nicholas, Howe, Scott, and Woodford, and you give them your Lexington Public Library card, you'll get a free card.
Okay, great.
And you may be able to go to other counties, like if you live in one of those 17 counties, you can come to the library and pay $10 a year. Except for Louisville. Louisville won't give anybody a library card. Cincinnati won't give you a library.
Well, I've been very blessed. I was a sub. I'm a teacher, and I was a sub when I retired. And I get a library card wherever I go. I ask, can I have a library card here? If I don't live there. And I probably have 40 library cards. But I haven't accessed a lot of it for genealogy until now. I usually do audiobooks. This is exciting that I could go. I know I have Scott in Jessamine County. And Jessamine County renewed for us this year, just for Nicoletta. Do any of you know of any other county that has a whole lot to offer other than Lexington at the library as far as genealogy?
Mercer County.
A lot of the counties, well, they'll have unique offerings. So, for example, when libraries start to reopen, like I know like Clark County has a nice collection and it will have specific things to that area. Just each library will have, like, for example, Jessamine County has a really detailed death index to the Jessamine Journal. So you would be, so a lot of people in Fayette, have relatives in Jessamine. So that's a great resource unique to Jessamine County. So it's a good idea to explore collections, that are relevant to your particular genealogy.
Cincinnati Public is considered one of the top 5 research libraries in the country. Go make sure you check that.
Cincinnati, Ohio.
And someone just pointed out Kenton has really great resources for Northern Kentucky. They have a really large collection in Kenton County.
Well, Kenton was one that gave me a library card I just emailed them and asked, told them I did genealogy and audiobooks, and they gave it to me, and they renew it every year for me. It's amazing.
They're very generous.
They are very generous.
Their cards. It's nice.
Let me ask one more thing. Does anybody else? I don't want to take up all the time. I wanted to ask one more question.
You're fine.
The grandmother that I was looking for that was also orphaned as in the cholera, my grandmother wrote down a lot and told me where she was buried, and it's in Wilmore. And I went, Jessamine County has a great historical society, and I went there several times. I even joined. And I was very pleased, but they said there was no cemetery where I was saying it was, where grandmother said it was. And I mean, they No. They looked at the Chrisman Mill, is what it was called, on the Chrisman farm. And they looked, they really helped me a whole lot, but we could never find it. And then one day a gentleman, I said, one day after the meeting, I drove out to the road in Wilmore from the Jessamine County Historical Society. And a man called me that was there. And he said, I think your third great grandfather's house is still standing out there. I had pictures. And sure enough, it was there. And I went and talked. I don't know if you all do this or not. I went and talked to the lady that was working on the house. She had bought the land and the house. And anyway, the lady said, "Oh, yeah, there's an old cemetery back there." So have any of you found, Jessamine County did not know about it. Do any of you know any more about, when it dries up, this was like when it was really rainy last fall and there were snakes and they said, do not come for the next, and then it never dried up. And anyway, I'm going out by myself to look at this cemetery and I asked if it was all right. Do any of you have any other suggestions about how to find, they said the stones are all turned over. Anything else that anybody can suggest?
I just put up a link. It's not necessarily complete, but our library does have cemeteries, as many as we could find for all of the surrounding counties, including Jessamine, listed there as anything that we could confirm.
Okay.
So like I said, that tiny little cemetery, a lot of the family plots are really hard to find or keep up with. There may very well be a cemetery there.
Oh, this lady that owns it said there were 3. And she said she has let the Historical Society know about them and no one has come to clean them or look at them. So I suspect has never been cleaned or looked at, but I'm going. And
there are laws about it, but I want to say it's the property owner's responsibility. Okay. I'm not 100% sure on that. Now, there are certain restrictions, like for a cemetery area, a property owner is not permitted to go in and bulldoze, for example. But I don't know about that. That may be something that is on her to do. I just don't know enough.
And there are family graveyards all over the place that no one knows about or where.
Okay.
So any that we have been able to track down, we did go ahead and add to our online map. So it may or may not be on there.
I will look.
I lived out in the country for a long time, and there was a cemetery right next to my property for the adjoining farm. And I really loved living there. And my neighbor said, "Susan, you got to ask James if you can be buried out here. You love this place so much." So I was actually did a sort of a photographic odyssey with my neighbor to, Memorial Day is a really good time to go because a lot of people, especially in these rural areas, go out to the cemetery and have picnics like they used to. It used to be like a family gathering thing. And that whole Memorial Day weekend, people go out and decorate graves and things. So that's a good time to go.
Well,
with a friend. Don't go alone. Go with a friend. Okay.
Okay. Well, my son said he would go with me, and the lady that owns the property, her brother lives there, and she's going to give me, right now he's there taking care of the house, and she said, I'll give you his number in case something happens, but I'm going to make sure I'm not alone because of a snake bite, or I don't want somebody to think I'm going to wear white, and I don't know, if I'm supposed to, I'm going to take pictures, but I don't know if I'm supposed to document, let somebody know where it is, or, put up a fence there eventually, or what. I have 2 grandmothers that are buried there and a grandfather, supposedly.
If you go with your smartphone and take a picture, the smartphone should record the coordinates of where the picture was taken, and that will let people know where it is.
Oh, good idea. Good idea. Thank you.
The Kentucky Historical Society is supposed to be the keeper of all things cemeteries. And if you have a dispute about having access to a cemetery, they're the people to call.
Well, they did not have this one. I checked there last year too.
I don't know. Ann Johnson used to be the keeper, the cemetery lady, but she's started her own foundation now, and I'm not sure what she's up to.
Okay. Well, those were my two roadblocks, and I know I've been down to the public. I was down there, and there was a fellow there. It wasn't anyone here, and he was so good to help me with this Elmira Crow. He was very, very good. He looked through, he found newspaper articles that might help me with the orphanage. He told me to go over to UK, and so I mean, people there are very, very kind. And I don't know if I'll ever be able to come down again and go through those books again. Do you think we'll ever be able to come to the library again and go through those books?
Yeah, I do.
Hope so. Otherwise,
We're assuming that. So
I hope so too. I'm just
Are you all getting any indication of when the libraries may open? And like what phase? Phase 95 or something?
line up with the governor's recommendations for, for the state. So we don't really have a date yet. But
Don't forget, until you physically can come to the library, once staff are back in the library, even if customers can't come in, you can always email us and we can scan articles, book pages. We can send you information, and we do that for free. Granted, we can't do it now, but once we're back in the library, we can totally do that.
Question we missed really quickly. Michelle asked about Find a Grave. Let's see, I lost the question. Uploading the information there with the GPS on Find a Grave.
Michelle, I was just wondering if she had already looked for that that cemetery on Find a Grave. Because if so, they have a GPS function on the app that you can just click on the app and it automatically assigns the GPS to whatever you're looking at.
I have not. I use Find a Grave, and my father's family's in Eastern Kentucky, and I've added so many, but I did not think about looking on Find a Grave for the. Does anybody? One more question. Does anyone know anything about Wilmore? Is there an abundance of information anywhere? There's a little house there, they said, that has a lot of books, old books, and documents. Does anyone know anything about that down in Wilmore?
I mean, you said you checked with Jessamine County Public Library?
Yes, I've been there and talked to a number of people. They were okay. There was some stuff there, but I called the courthouse in Wilmore, and Wilmore said there's a little house there. Does that sound ring true? That has a lot of documentation and books about Wilmore in it. That's only open, probably never now. But I didn't know if anybody knew about that little house. I never got time to get there.
Last week they were on the site, on this session, they were talking about the Facebook sites. And I think there is a Jessamine County site that I got on because I have family in Wilmore, but that has a lot of pictures and stuff coming through it. You might just get on that on Facebook.
I am on that, and that does help.
Have you posted
You could just ask the group. You could say, is
I
there
have
someone told me
not.
about a house that has, resources on Wilmore? Is anyone familiar?
Oh, that's a good idea, because a lot of the older people actually put the obituaries of people that have passed on there, and the kids get on, look at it, and tell their family. So I will do that.
don't forget to contact Asbury College and see if they have I've not been there. I don't know if they have a genealogy history room.
Okay. A lot of my family was in Wilmore. They were at that end.
Some of the yearbooks have just come online because I was able to find a lot of my family there, that connected to Asbury, and it just came up on Ancestry. So if you had anybody connected to the college at all, there are more yearbooks where you can leaf through and see things.
Okay, great.
Okay.
I'm posting in the chat the web address for the Jessamine Historical Society.
Great. And you say there will be a transcript of this on the public library page that we can go to and access?
We'll post a link to the video.
Okay. So I can watch it again and copy all this down. Okay, great. Well, you all, I joined late. I just happened to see it, and I appreciate all your help. I didn't mean to occupy your time.
That's fine. We're doing this every Saturday, basically. So please join us in the future. And feel free to email us with any suggestions of topics or anything like that. This was a great discussion today. Yeah, thank you.
Well, I appreciate everything, everyone's help today. Thank you so very much. I'll look forward to go through and get all these links down and then go to the, now that I'm doing nothing, I'm going to go through and really do some searching. It's amazing when you find one little thing, how much it'll open up to, the newspaper for me opened one grandfather over in Eastern Kentucky, what happened to him. So I'm very appreciative of all the information today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks, JP.
Thank you, JP.
Thanks.
Here's my email if anybody wants to